Stay home. I didn't want it.
Yeah.
But she sounded terrible. And haven't heard from Dr. Johnson again. We've got 5 here, so we will call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is to discuss the agenda. City Manager?
Mayor, Council,
I think so.
On the agenda tonight, the first item under the consent agenda are the minutes from the January 16th City Council meeting. The second item, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get logged into. The second item is a resolution authorizing purchase of ready-mix concrete from Ready Mix LLC for DBA Custom Crete. This is through a City of Dallas contract, and the estimated expenditure for the year is $185,000. This is a continuation of the contract that we have had for the last couple of years with Ready Mix concrete for batch concrete. The next item, 4C, is a resolution authorizing purchase of waterworks utility repair products from Core in Maine. This is a vendor who previously was under the name HD Supply that we use to purchase various waterworks equipment such as fire hydrants, replacement parts, valves, meter boxes, things like that. We've used different companies. But because of problems with some of the other companies, we've been focusing more and buying more from Core in Maine now, and so those purchases are exceeding the will exceed the $50,000 threshold. So that's why we're bringing this item to approve that contract with them. That contract will expire in April, so we will be coming back very soon with a new contract for somebody. And then the next item, 4D, is to authorize an application for a grant. This is a grant from the TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, through the COG. And this would allow us to contract for a disaster debris management plan. You may recall that we have contracts in place for disaster debris removal. What this would do is create a plan for the cities of Cedar Hill and Lancaster and Duncanville, and not only identify what the contractor would do, but also identify what city departments would do, identify locations for debris to be staged, and how we would minimize disaster debris by recycling goods, what can be recycled, what can be sorted out. The grant award is up to $125,000. It is a fully funded grant. There is no match for the city if we get this grant.
So this doesn't include DeSoto?
It does not include DeSoto. DeSoto already has a disaster debris management plan, and so what we will do then is incorporate their pieces in as we can into this plan. This plan would be for the 3 cities. So Duncanville, though, would manage the contract, but it would be for the other 2 cities. Those are all of the items on the consent agenda. On individual consideration items, 5A is an ordinance approving or increasing the tax exemption, property tax exemption for over 65 and disabled from $26,400 to $30,000. You will recall that we had some discussion on this during the budget process, and then the council discussed it again at your retreat. When we looked at other cities, especially the best Southwest cities, they were already at 30,000, and you had indicated a desire to go to that level. What that will do is provide about $27.30 reduction in property taxes for exempt households, and it would be a decrease in property tax revenue to the city of a little under $100,000.
You said it'd be a decrease of 100,000?
$98,403 to be exact.
And is it comparable to the surrounding cities?
It is,
It's
yes.
same thing.
It is the same now as Cedar Hill, Lancaster, and DeSoto. And people only qualify for one exemption, so even if you're over 65 and disabled, you can only get one exemption. I mean, you don't get double exemption.
So there'd just be one 2730.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, 20, right, correct, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
go up about it.
That's about what it would be, based on the current tax rate.
Okay.
The next item, 5B, is a revision to the Code of Ethics. This was previously discussed in briefing session, and the ordinance is brought to council for consideration. Item 5.
Since we've been pushing it down the road every time we don't have a full council, do you want to push it down the road again? Or do I just want to get through it?
It's up to y'all, whatever you want to do. Looks like we're having a hard time getting a full council here.
I think since,
Yeah, I think we need to, everyone should, I believe, that's just me,
Yeah,
that
I think you're right.
everyone should be here.
since
Okay.
some of them feel strongly about it.
Yeah, okay.
Y'all want to table that for the
Yeah,
next
to the
meeting?
next meeting.
Mayor, do you want to officially table it, or you just want to pull it for the consent of the council? You can do it either way.
Pull it with the consent
Is
of
there
the
any
council.
difference between the two?
Yes.
Well,
Table
you're
it.
not.
No,
you're not going
you don't have to
consent
have a
today.
motion, take a vote, and go through the process. Phil announced that during the work session, the council agreed that they wanted the full council to be present for the consideration for that item. And unless there's an objection, I'll pull that for consideration tonight. Hearing nothing, move on to the next item. Just more efficient, that's all.
Is that what you
Yeah,
Yeah.
5B, yeah, we're just gonna pull it.
pull it? Item 5C is a resolution calling for the election for May 2nd, Saturday, May 5th. And this is for election of a mayor for a 2-year term, council member from District 2 for a 2-year term, and council member from District 4 for a 2-year term. We do have to provide or call the election prior to February 16th. So this is the last council meeting that you have to be able to do that, to meet that deadline. Item 5D is a resolution establishing a citizen bond advisory committee. Based on the discussion that we had last week at the workshop, this resolution then provides for that committee, provides for the charge to them and some questions for them to answer or respond to the council. It does establish the makeup of the committee. The wording is allows for 15 to 19 members, but does have wording in there that allows the council to change the size of that committee as you decide to. So it's not locked in. It does provide for membership from the various boards that we discussed before. And then also it establishes a disestablishment date for the committee based on the earlier of their recommendation being accepted by the council, or August 1st, whichever is earlier.
Mayor, I'd like to amend that to also include that the chairman of that bond committee be appointed by the city, by this body, and it be a member of this body. And I've
We're not
asked,
making appointments.
pardon me?
We're not making appointments.
Okay,
but
but I would just
You
like-
can put that proviso in there, and then next meeting's what we agreed on to make the
Okay,
appointment.
so I'll amend that when it comes up.
Okay, all right.
Those are all of the items.
Okay. Okay, item number 2, the briefing session. 2A has received a presentation of the US 67 landscape design.
Good evening. Mayor and Council. As you said, this is the first of 2 presentations that we will present regarding the US 67 landscape design. Tonight's purpose is just to, again, just sort of revisit the 67 landscape design and the process pursuant to the recommended award at the next council meeting, so we can get this project underway. With me tonight is Nick Nelson. He's the landscape architect from Pacheco & Koch. He's the gentleman that prepared the concept drawings and the plans and the master plan that we previously submitted to TxDOT to get the initial allocation of funds. And then his company the intent is to retain that company to prepare the design. And we'll be tag teaming through this as well. So first, again, let me just run through the background. So this process started back in January of last year, and in fact, we completed the negotiations exactly 1 year later. But it's been a work in progress. And back in June, we submitted the application for green ribbon funding in FY18. In September, TxDOT designated $486,000 toward the project, which would only fund the Wintergreen Gateway, which was the nexus between our city and Cedar Hill. So that was a shared allocation for that joint location. We did a meeting with TxDOT in September to understand the process for the additional funding, which I'll talk to you about at this meeting. We got some guidance from Mr. Hugman, as well as the city manager from Cedar Hill, regarding some ways to proceed. Again, we talked about finalizing negotiations, and then bring us to tonight with our update. Again, just to reiterate the project locations, starting from the north and working down. The original grant was for the Cockrell Hill Gateway, and what you'll see under each of them is each of the sort of the description, followed by the estimated portion of the landscape construction, which is what the grant funds, as well as right now what we're programming for the hardscape elements, which is the part that the city has to fund. So at the Cockrell Gateway, what the proposal reflects is an assumption of $1.2 million in grant money for the landscaping, and then at least $100,000 which would fund the monument sign at Cockrell Hill. We've proposed some additional funding for both the Cockrell Hill Gateway, Wintergreen, and then any additional hardscape elements as one of our nominated bond projects in case we want to add some additional hardscape elements. The 2 areas of concentration you see is sort of a change, but based on our conversation and some guidance as we were coordinating with Cedar Hill. Originally, we planned on a continuous landscaping across the entire corridor, which would have been a $750,000 estimate just for the landscaping. Due to some challenges in terms of funding, but as well as, how do we maintain it? How do we actually take care of this big stretch? And then again, after talking with Cedar Hill and some of their vision, we were recommending that we go to 2 additional areas of concentration, more of a minor gateways at our 2 other bridges along the corridor at Daniel Dale and Main Street. The estimates. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
What was their vision, Cedar Hill's vision?
Their vision was areas of concentration as well. They had some other locations. Their southern gateway, as originally planned, was at the very far south of their city, but that particular location is very industrial, so they were planning on pulling their southern gateway a little bit further north, and then looking at some minor areas of concentration again, at their intermediate bridges, to be determined. You know, that sort of gets beyond.
But my thinking is, since we have a small stretch of it, we could easily, I mean, and it's a grant, why can't we go for this $750?
The bigger challenge, ma'am, is how do we take care of it? The mowing and the caretaking and getting sprinklers all the way out into the middle of the medians and dealing with the barrier walls. And then as you sort of drive a lot of that area, you don't really, the visibility isn't there. So that was sort of what we had, that was sort of the reasons why we, as staff, were recommending and sort of the way we structured the negotiation following the meeting with the city managers was based on, this was something that was definitely more focused, again, because we do have such a short stretch. You know, you're talking, you know, you drive through, it's grass, pow, here's, you know, here's Wintergreen, pow, here's Main Street, then Daniel Dale, and then Cockrell Hill, and then you're out, or vice versa, coming south. But the bigger part is that we can get to them, very, you know, and actually maintain them.
How do you get to the ones on 20?
I don't maintain them. I think they just go up on the access
Yeah,
road.
the main thing that we were, is the interior median, is being able to get to those to maintain them. And as Greg said, one of the things is we talked through it, thought, well, you know, with the traffic moving at a high speed, and then also when you think about the terrain, the topography, you're going to have a barrier at least on one side that's going to obstruct visibility for that lane, so you would only see it coming the other direction. We felt like that we'd probably have a better bang for our buck if we just concentrated on those segments. That's not to say that we can't come back at a later time and do something, but we felt like right now it wasn't worth spending the money on the design work, and then also more than that is then the maintenance cost of maintaining all of that and the ability to get to maintain over the long haul.
So in the meeting, are you talking about like a planter like they have on 75? Where they have the grass going from that planter? It goes through the middle?
Some of the things that we were looking at were like ornamental grasses, shrubs, different types of strips of different type of plant material. So it has to be irrigated.
Well, no, they don't irrigate that. I've been on it. They have this truck that just goes and sprays water on it.
The requirements we're tracking is irrigated.
Ours is irrigated.
Ours has been on 75, it's not irrigated. They spray water. They spray water.
75.
Yeah.
That's what the
Central
meeting-
Expressway. Central
That may
Expressway.
have been
Oh,
done.
okay.
TxDOT requires it to be irrigated, so under the Green Ribbon Grant Program, you have to irrigate those. That might have been done differently.
When we accept, and we decide to accept the grant money, there's some stipulations about, we'll, you know, later on as we proceed, where the city will acknowledge that we're gonna take care of it, because the last thing TxDOT wants to do is spend $2.5 million and then have it all die. And so
Well, they had that on Central Expressway. I think that was
Yes.
a learning.
That was a learning experience.
Because Dallas, they put it all of the maintenance, I think, all on TxDOT. And they finally said, whoa, wait a minute, we're not gonna continue to do this.
Well, are there future plans for this freeway to have additional lanes in the median? So, I mean, that's another reason not to spend money now, because the next phase of this, it would all come out, and you'd have 2 more lanes going down the median.
That'd be interior, those would be HOV lanes if they're allowed anymore. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Well-
And that's way down the line too.
Yeah, but it's still money spent now that
Yeah,
would be torn
I
out.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I just want our city to look good.
Yeah, absolutely, ma'am.
I promise it's gonna look good.
I tell you what, that sign that Grand Prairie's got coming east,
Oh, yeah.
man, that is one impressive sign. You don't miss it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
that's bang for your bucks
Uh-huh.
on that one.
And then just, again, if you notice the 2 areas of concentration, these are all the construction, you know, estimates from from Nick. And then the monument signs, again, would be to be determined. And so if we decide to, again, go beyond the $200,000 that is in the current proposal, it would be subject to additional funding, and we'd have to get a little bit, we have to get some more design effort. But this is conceptually what we're looking at. Again, what I want to highlight in the green circle is the Wintergreen Gateway, where the $486,000 landscape grant was allocated to us in September. Now, these are, after our conversation with TxDOT, this is, you know, what we call like no-year money. It doesn't expire, but as you notice, we have a lot of incremental funding ahead of us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but and it sort of goes why we're at the point where we need to proceed with the design.
Has this been run by the KDB board? The decisions on the plans, beautification, the
So-
design?
As we go through the timeline, what we're doing right now is to award the design contract so that we can then bring in the consultant to do the design, which would then, that's when, after the contract is awarded, we would bring in the council, bring in your boards as desired in order to provide the feedback that they're looking at to actually come up with convert the concept into what we want. So it's, we would do that, but this, we're not there yet in terms of timeline.
So the 1.2 million, the 250K, the 250K, that's money that we know, those are set figures, we just don't know when we'll get them?
Well, those are estimates right now, and that is what we're going to apply for in the grant. We don't know if we'll get the grant, although TxDOT is saying that we have a very good chance of getting it, but a lot of that hinges on having a more detailed design. When we applied last year, we just had a concept, a conceptual design. So we need to get farther down the road with basically a shovel-ready design for them to seriously consider granting us more funds. But from what they're saying, we feel very confident that we'll get the funding.
So when we submit the grant, we have to have the design with the grant.
So the 486 all gets spent on Wintergreen.
It was designated for Wintergreen by TxDOT, which for them now, the bigger picture is this. The initial application, which was joint, the FY18 project was joint between us and Cedar Hill. It reflected $1.2 million in landscaping at Cockrell Hill, the 486 at Wintergreen, and $1.3 million for Cedar Hill's Southern Gateway. They only funded with FY18 Wintergreen. The instruction that we got from the Green Ribbon Grant Program Manager at TxDOT said, if you want to compete for any more money, either residual money that doesn't get obligated in FY18, or if you want to go and compete again in 19 for the additional funds, then you must have a design.
So there wasn't a design for Wintergreen?
Wintergreen, we were able to submit the concept, which you'll see bits, Nick will present you with the concept. When we do the I-20 initial, until we get some additional funding from, like for I-20, we're going to continue to present just the I-20 concept until they start funding us the money. Where we're at now is we're waiting on the TxDOT to come through with the following incremental funds as they come available in the bigger program.
I don't know whether it's still that on federal grants, the federal money, they require a certain percentage to be set aside for landscaping, and that's the only thing it can be used for. Is that still the way it is?
I'm not sure, sir.
But that's the way it has been in the past. That's when we did 20, that's the way it was. That it's landscaping money, and you can't transfer it over to build additional roadway or whatever. It has to be used for landscaping. And at the time we did I-20, they had a bunch of money for landscaping, and we got that governor's award and were able to apply that on 20, and they came in with their money, and we said we would like to do a lot more, and they said, well, we got money for trees and shrubs, and we got another, I don't know, it's something like $300,000 added to that because they had a surplus of funds at the time on landscaping. But they're doing more and more landscaping now on some of these interstates.
And then we're dealing with government bids and municipal bids, but $486,000, you should be able to have one heck of them. I would.
Well, we get no monument at all. It's all gonna be bushes.
It's all landscape.
Yeah.
Bushes landscaping at one location.
Wait, it's making some money on the trees.
Why was Cockrell Hill chosen as our northern gateway instead of Wheatland? Do you know?
I don't know. This was,
I can speak.
yeah.
Basically, because of the visibility coming through the interchange with I-20, come through, there's a lot of congestion and other things happening up there. And so by the time you get to Cockrell Hill, that settles down and you can focus on that arrival experience.
I mean, I
And so-
understand
Yeah,
what you're saying. I
but
don't
it's
necessarily
not,
agree with
yeah,
it.
but that's not the,
So yeah, if we put it up there,
Yeah,
less
you
people
got,
see
you
it,
got
it's
two
less
ramps coming
visible.
in off
Yeah.
20. And
Whereas Cockrell Hill, we felt everybody sees it coming through.
okay, so would there be monument, I see there's blue on both sides, so would there be, something going north and south?
No, so the blue box just sort of recommended the original plan, which was sort of a corridor stretch of plantings that the staff sort of moved away from in favor of the two intermediate areas of concentration. So really what we're talking about right now in terms of the design is, let me move to the scope and we can come back to this. So the design scope of work, we negotiated the price of $152,000, which met the budget. The scope includes, again, multiple meetings with city staff as well as presentations to planning and zoning, and the city council will be involved during the design process. We can also add the Keep Duncanville Beautiful as recommended. We'd be 100% design at the Cockrell Hill Gateway, which would include landscape and hardscape elements, which was the $100,000 that's currently programmed. 100% design for the Wintergreen Road Gateway, which was also landscape and hardscape. And that is, again, that's the one that we share with Cedar Hill. And then it's to get the two areas of concentration grant ready so that we can pursue the funding for that intermediate areas. Neither the corridor concepts or the area of concentration concept as presented here was part of the original grant from FY18. So when we go forward in FY19, we would include all the elements for all four gateways so that we could get funding.
Okay, first of all, go back.
To the scope?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The 152,000, that's for whom?
That's for Pacheco and Coke.
Okay. 100% design, Wintergreen, Gateway, Lancaster for with Cedar Hill. So that means there's going to be a sign going north and south?
There will be, well, we'll say roughly half of it would represent Duncanville and our sign, and the other half would represent Cedar Hill and their sign.
So there will be a sign saying you're going into Cedar Hill, which is south, and then there'll be a sign saying you're coming into Duncanville.
That's correct.
Okay.
There's a
No,
monument sign.
Yeah.
in both cases, the location that's proposed would be in Duncanville, so we would have to give Cedar Hill, the right to come in and do their their landscape, take care of their part of the
Why can't they have it in Cedar Hill?
because the gateway it's a shared element.
Well, I think the original concept was that we would work with Cedar Hill to kind of develop a unified plan, but then the plans will be different. Duncanville will be advertising Duncanville and Cedar Hill will be advertising Cedar Hill, but to have a unified concept instead of bang, we got one set of things here and they've got another set of things.
From TxDOT's perspective, they're examining, they're looking at the whole corridor. And part of the attraction of this project from a state perspective is the joint pieces
Now,
of
now,
this.
can you give an example of that shared gateway?
What it looks like?
Uh-huh.
I think is that in your.
We have some
your
concepts
future,
in the
and
follow-up.
some of the slides that we'll show you, we'll show
Yes,
you
ma'am.
some of those concepts.
And again, these are concepts, and so now the design person is when we.
It's
take
not
it
one
to-
sign, I mean, they're separate signs, it's not one sign. That's what you're thinking.
And then just another thing as well, next week, these slides here, in terms of concept, were also shared with Cedar Hill. So we've been sort of using, presenting the same story, both staffs. And then Pacheco and Koch is also be retained for the City of Cedar Hill as well. So we're, again, this is very synchronized between the both cities. The design schemes are very complementary of each other, and again, Nick will talk more about that. But again, the intent is to take this to the next level, realize, take advantage of the grant money that we've already got, and put ourselves in the best position so that we can compete for the balance of the funds, which, as you see, is a significant portion of the job, especially when you look at the big picture from the state's perspective, which is the whole corridor that encompasses both cities. Now I'll turn it over to Nick again. He'll talk through the concept designs and walk us through the project, and then I'll close out with the way ahead.
Thanks, Greg. Mayor and council, it's good to be back with you again. It was last July, I believe, last time I stood before you. We're excited about this project and these concepts. TxDOT is very excited to see two communities working together to beautify these corridors. And so just to back up a little bit on what Green Ribbon Grant money is. It's a funding program. It has federal and state monies associated with it, so the legislatures involved with the allocation of these funds. The money is going to get spent on landscape somewhere, and it can only be spent on landscape somewhere. And so TxDOT provides a mechanism where you can apply for these grants, and you can get that money to make sure the money gets spent in your communities rather than somewhere else. And so we've been involved in this work for a number of years. Currently we've got projects up in Melissa, a $2.3 million landscape project that's Green Ribbon funded and getting installed up there. We have projects out in Hudson Oaks. That one was a smaller one, about $500,000. And so they vary in range and scale depending on the grant application process, also depending on construction happening in the area. So there's some different correlations and different things that influence where and how money goes. That being said, as we began this project, there's a few things that are exciting. One, the 67 improvements that are taking place. That's a feather in your cap as it relates to grants, because TxDOT is making those improvements. They want their improvements to look nice after the fact. And so compared to somewhere else that's not having roadway improvements that may apply for these grants, you would rank higher in that pecking order because you have the roadway improvements taking place. Other things that influence those grant applications, as Greg mentioned, are shovel-ready plans, or what TxDOT refers to as projects that can happen quickly. And so the more ready those plans are, the higher up the list you get bumped. And so we began this process with TxDOT, engaged them from the very beginning. And the intent was to stay in front of them, and has been, and they've been a part of the decision-making process for the past year as well. So they're very aware of your project and very excited of your project. And so we began by looking at the corridor as a whole and identifying what we refer to as primary, secondary, and tertiary planting areas. And this was based on how visible these different areas were, where they were located geographically, and other factors. Some precedent images of landscaping around the Metroplex are Chisholm Trail Parkway, the George Bush Turnpike, 121, as well as the Dallas North Tollway. And so these are a mix of both NTTA projects, TxDOT projects, and the like.
Did you guys have anything to do with either of these?
I've actually had something to do with all of them. From a previous employer, I worked with H&TB for a number of years, which was the primary consultant to NTTA, and have since, through my career now, moved on to Pacheco Coke.
But Pacheco and Coke did not have anything to do.
These specific ones, no. Pacheco Coke is doing the Melissa project, and we've done the Hudson Oaks projects, as well as other projects around the Metroplex.
But you don't have
That's
pictures of
Pacheco
those?
Coke. No, I don't. I can get some for you if you'd
Would
like.
you? Yes.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And so this was the planting concept that was selected. It is based on a strata concept that's been identified for the larger corridor with TxDOT. And that's where those lines and layers come, playing off the strata that you find in the escarpment.
That's Cedar Hill, 1382.
Yeah, that's Cedar Hill.
Yeah, it's the Bennell Branch,
Correct.
which comes down Cedar Hill Road.
But that part of the highway is 67 in Cedar Hill, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this was just to illustrate the strata. We'll go into our gateways in the next slides.
Yeah, so this is where the process started with these initial concept sketches. And this is part of what helped get the initial funding for this first phase of the grant. And so this got refined and got more site-specific and incorporating the future improvements that will be taking place as well.
Except there's not going to be anything in the median, right? You have things.
There would be at those areas
At
of
these
concentration,
primary
because we
locations.
can get to those.
Okay.
But it's farther when you get in between those intersections that it's harder to get to maintain, so that's why we decided to take those out. But in those areas of concentration at the intersections, we would have it in the median too.
So Cockrell Hill Gateway would look something like this when it was completed. And so you can see the various plantings as well as the monument sign in the upper right-hand corner. It's very limited space, and so we developed a vertical concept, and that way you maximize your bang for the buck, but you also get that additional visibility with going vertical versus horizontal.
Can you back up for just a
I
second?
can.
Is that the concept of a monument sign there on the right, the upper right?
Yes, that's correct. And there's another slide that will show that closer.
Okay, and so in these, I guess these are different colors plants, is that what it's supposed to be?
Yes, they have different flowers that bloom different colors.
Okay, and in the middle here, is this raised?
No, that's a barrier that would be on one side of the road, and then the plants would be on the other side of the
So
barrier.
you can't see those plants if you're, in this case, on the right-hand side.
You'll be able to see some as they'll
Yes.
grow higher than the wall.
Yeah, that's a concrete barrier wall.
Right, so people won't be able to see the,
Well, he's saying they'll grow tall,
I think on the left side you can.
But that was why we didn't want to carry it throughout the entire corridor, sir, was because of that wall. And then again, the inaccessibility.
okay, well, all of it or part of it, if people can't see the plants, I mean, are we,
Well, the other side will, because there's not a barrier wall on the other side. So going one direction, you will see it, depending on the terrain. Plus, people up on the service roads will be able to see it because those will be elevated. So it'll have an impact having it in the middle. It'll have more impact than not having anything at all. But because of that barrier wall, as Greg said, that was why we didn't want to carry it all the way through the corridor. We just didn't see the benefit of doing that. But there is a benefit to having it at these areas of concentration. The barrier wall is only on one side of the road. It's only on one direction of lanes. It's not on both directions.
And you do have your topographical changes where you'll be up higher looking down on the road, and you'll see it then.
That's correct. Those barriers tend to be 36 inches tall. As you sit in your vehicles, you typically sit higher than that as well. So there is some, albeit limited, visibility when you're adjacent to it even. Wintergreen is a much more restrictive environment, but still applying that same concept. And this is the one we're still working through, because this is the shared one with the city of Cedar Hill. And so the plants will be minimal maintenance, low water use, but then also have various bloom cycles. That was something we talked about previously with the pollinator habitat. That's one of the things that scores a lot of points with TxDOT, when the plants do something more than just look pretty. So using native plants it gets them excited. It also results in less maintenance for your facilities. And so the plants were selected to bloom at different times based on their bloom cycle. So you basically have different plants in bloom throughout the year to help with the aesthetics of it, but then also to help with providing the pollinator habitat.
I know there's a move to have more of the plants that monarch butterflies like.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you including those?
We are. So pollinators are everything from butterflies to bees to hummingbirds. There's a fairly large list. And there's actually different designations now. They refer to as bee cities and things like that. So these are some more of the plants that will be involved in the design. Again, all native to Texas. And this is the monument sign that relates to the improvements TxDOT's doing with their strata and the wall designs, but then also providing that vertical element.
Who designed the sign?
We did, ma'am, with staff.
With staff?
You'll have a chance to read that.
Yeah. I'd like to get some input from the citizens.
A big part of this portion, TxDOT likes to see that the city also has skin in the game, so to speak. So when cities are investing in a monument as part of the grant application process, that also scores additional points instead of just saying, hey, give us a bunch of plants. They see that you're taking it serious. And that leads to the next steps, unless you have any other questions.
So again, as you see, there's several steps remaining here. Again, as we talked about, the goal was to present the design contract to y'all at the next council meeting for the approval. Once we have the approval, we'll move into the design phase. You'll see the monuments 30, 60, 90, 100, and as you put off to the side, we'll get council input and approval throughout the process. What I do want to highlight on 1 June that you'll see is when we will then apply for the fiscal year 19 green ribbon grant. It is synchronized with having the 60% designs, which is the minimum that TxDOT wants to see in order to show that we're ready to go, and if we get the money, we'll execute. We're ready to execute. You'll also see from 1 June through 30 September, if we have the grant at 60%, then we can compete for any residual FY18 money that wasn't obligated due to what other circumstances folks weren't progressed as far as we hope to be. And then again, the goal is to incrementally fund the entire corridor so that we can, we're ready to go. So again, we'll compete for, again, try to set up ourselves up for success to compete for FY18 residual funds, put ourselves in competition for the FY19 funds, and then we can, based on the timeline of the US 67 project, give one more go for FY20 so that we can actually sort of roll right into the construction phase of the landscaping as soon as they finish the US 67 project, which right now is scheduled for completion at the end of May of 2019. And again, what we're looking at based on this timeline and the optimism of getting the allocations that we require to make this project happen, we would start in fall 2019 with the landscape project. And, subject to your questions.
One of the things too, as we said, this was all very conceptual. And you may remember that last year when we came to you to apply for the grant, we were under a very short timeline because we found out from TxDOT that the grant applicant, that they wanted us to apply in FY18, and the grant application deadline was coming up pretty quick. So we didn't have any time to come back to council with some designs, but it was all very preliminary. It was just a concept. So that's what you've seen. But now with this process, we do intend to have more come back to you with an input, to get your input, get input from other people as well as we go through and finalize those designs. So this will get us in line with that. And as Greg said, what we would do is bring the contract in with the Checo code on the next agenda.
Okay, questions, comments?
Some of those pictures that were shown, any idea what the cost of those were?
Yes, they vary in range. Depending on which phase, they were $2 to $3 million. Especially Southwest Parkway, if you're familiar with that, or Chisholm Trail Parkway, heavily landscaped, and so that would be definitely the upper end, and then phase back or down the back.
That's stuff expensive. That little exit on 1382, where you're going south, where you exit on 1382, that one little off-ramp there costs well over $1 million. Put that little off-ramp there.
Irrigation is part of that as well, though, right?
That's correct. That includes irrigation,
So that includes
and that's
irrigation.
the significant portion of the cost. It's much more labor intensive with the trenching and boring that's necessary.
If there are no further questions, we'll move on. Getting near the time, we've got two other items, B and C, and that's discuss the annual calendar, city calendar, and C is we discuss the liaison. Again, we don't have John Ed here. She was one of the ones I think that Patrick wanted to discuss the liaison. So, do you want to defer those to B and C?
I do, because I think, I mean, just looking at, yeah, I would like to defer, especially C. I don't know how people feel about the calendar.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we need to get the calendar developed, but it doesn't have to be done. So if everybody's in agreement on that,
yes.
I see all kinds of, so, okay, we'll do that, and let's then now go to the executive session, and we can get that out of the way before we go to the regular session. So, at this time, I will adjourn this meeting at 6:53. And we'll go into executive session. Our first order of business tonight will be the invocation, and tonight it will be led by the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church here in Duncanville, the Reverend Dr. Ginger Hertenstein. Following the invocation, we will have the pledge to the flags. Please stand.
Mayor Green, city leaders and citizens, please bow with me in prayer. God, you have invited us to pray. In fact, you seek people who turn to you as their source of strength. Tonight we accept your challenge, knowing that when we humbly pray, you take up our request and you guide us to an answer. This city inclines itself toward your thoughtful wisdom and seeks to act in good conscience in the interest of its citizens. So we invite you into the work of this council. As our leaders consider tonight's issues, let them see through a godly and unified lens. Give them the vision of our strength as a diverse city. Let them lead by example toward a community in unity. Let them view our city's assets rather than deficits. And as team members, may they embody a bond of mutual respect. May their words uplift one another so that we do not fall into the trap of civil discord. I ask you, Lord, to give us your favor by making Duncanville an example of how a local city can care for all of its citizens and the people who work here, because we rely on you. This is a great task, but these men and women have undertaken it willingly. Bless them and bless us all, Lord, through your Son's magnificent name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge the allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We're running a little late tonight, so on our reports, I'll dispense with the mayor's report, and we've been busy. We'll go right in. Now, we'll go to item number 2, proclamations and presentations. The first proclamation we have tonight is a proclamation recognizing February 2018 as Black History Month.
Whereas in 1976, Black History Month was formally adopted to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout our American experience, and whereas the history of people of African heritage goes back thousands of years and includes some of the greatest, most advanced and innovative societies in the history of human experience, and whereas African Americans have played a significant role in history from the early days of the pioneers to our present-day leaders in such industries as aerospace, finance, international trade, and government, and whereas Black History Month is a time for all Americans to reflect on the rich history and teaching of African Americans whose contributions are vast and wide, and whereas during Black History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on the rich history and teachings of African Americans and bear witness to the progress, beauty, and achievements they have made throughout our region. Now, therefore, David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, does hereby proclaim February as Black History Month in the City of Duncanville and urges all citizens to join him in celebrating the collective ingenuity, creativity, cultures, and traditions of African Americans, and encourage everyone to participate in events honoring the contributions
share with you, Councilman, the latest Soundness magazine that is featuring the leaders of our NAACP, and they are meeting in their home at the museum. It doesn't say that, but as you go through it, I know all of you will recognize that's in the Uganda room, and throughout the pictures of their time, it's the museum's pictures. So we're very proud to be the home meeting place of the NAACP, and we're very pleased to have this proclamation that we will share in our exhibit at the museum. Thank you so very much.
The second proclamation tonight will be the presentation of the Keep Duncanville Beautiful February 2018 Business Beautification Award plaque and proclamation to Natalie Nickerson, DDS, located at 218 East Wheatland Road. She's my
Mayor and Council, whereas the City of Duncanville is committed to improving the physical quality of community life, and whereas the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board was established to promote this commitment, and whereas the mission of the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board is to empower Duncanville citizens and businesses to take responsibility for enhancing their community environment, and whereas each quarter the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board recognized one commercial property within the city for significant improvement to the exterior portions of the property, landscaping improvement, and or long-term maintenance of the property that exemplifies high-quality standards, and whereas Natalie Nickerson, DDC, located at 218 East Wheatland Road, has been selected as the Business Beautification Award recipient for February 2018. Now, therefore, David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, do hereby urge all residents to join me in congratulating Natalie Nickerson, DDC, located at 218 East Wheatland Road, and commending this business for contributing to the beautification of our city. In witness thereof, he has affixed his hand and caused the seal of the City of Duncanville to this proclamation, 6th day of February 2018.
I don't really have anything planned to say except for Duncanville is my home. It has always been my home since I was a little girl. Grew up here, went away to college, and came back as fast as I could. Love this place. I'm a 1988 graduate of DHS. Both of my children are also grads of DHS, and so is my husband. So we're all Duncanville people, and I see a lot of familiar faces out in the audience. Thank you so much, Council, and to the board that nominated my office for this. We have a wonderful landscaper, if anybody is ever interested. That is Emerald Cut Landscaping, and I spoke to Kenny Byer, the owner, today, and told him that we were receiving this award. So thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
Our third proclamation is a proclamation recognizing Hall's Honey Fried Chicken.
So I grew up in Oak Cliff, and I know all about Hall's Chicken, Henderson Chicken, and just so thankful y'all moved to Duncanville. Whereas Hall's Honey Fried Chicken is part of Henderson's Chicken that originated in 1948 by Herman Henderson, and whereas with Mr. Henderson's blessing to Mr. John Hall, he opened his first store, Chicken 7, with his 7 siblings using the original Henderson's recipe. And whereas Mr. Hall opened his Hall's Honey Fried Chicken in its Duncanville location on September 10th, 2016, and whereas Hall's Honey Fried Chicken is the last remaining store in connection to the Henderson's Chicken, so the only place you can get the original recipe. And whereas Hall's Honey Fried Chicken has been ranked number 5 in the state of Texas by www.wideopeneats.com as the best fried chicken in Texas. Now, therefore, for David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, we do hereby urge all residents to join me in congratulating Hall's Honey Fried Chicken located at 301 West Camp Wisdom, commending this business for being ranked number 5 in the state of Texas as the best honey fried chicken in Texas, across the street from Kroger. Very, very good. They put up the pylons because the lines are so long, they're so good. But they're quick, and they're courteous, and they're Christian, and they're a great group.
Thank you to the council for this award. Thank you to my family and my staff that came tonight. Thank y'all very much. If y'all ever want any best chicken in Texas, Hall's Honey Fried Chicken.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Item number 3 is the citizens' input period, and I do want to remind everybody that during the election season, we do not broadcast the comments of the citizens. We will immediately start doing that right after the election. So at this time, I only have one card, and that's Dario Crescetto. So, thank you very much. We're back on the air. Item number 4 is our consent agenda, and there are 4 items on the consent, A through D. So I'll ask the city secretary if she will read the captions at this time.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the January 16, 2018 City Council regular meeting. Item 4B, consider a resolution authorizing purchase number 16-39 of ready-mix concrete from Ready Mix LLC, DBA Custom Crete, the City of Dallas contract BQ 1602, with an estimated expenditure amount of $185,000. Item 4C, consider a resolution authorizing purchase number 16-35 of Waterworks utility repair products from Core and Main LP through the City of Grapevine contract number 403-2013 in the estimated amount of $80,000. Item 4D, consider a resolution authorizing the application for the submission of and receipt of a grant, the Solid Waste Pass-Through Grant Program from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, through the North Central Texas Council of Governments, NCTCOG, for funding to develop a disaster debris management plan for the cities of Cedar Hill, Duncanville, and Lancaster, with a total grant value of $125,000. This is fully funded and does not require a city match.
Council, you've heard the captions read. The chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. So will you please vote? Oop. Sorry about that. I'm for. Okay. Item number 5A is to consider an ordinance approving and adopting an increase in the exemption of appraised values of resident homesteads in the city from $26,400 of appraised value to $30,000 appraised value for an adult who is 65 years of age or older. An increase in the exemption of appraised value of resident homesteads in the city from $26,400 of appraised value to $30,000 of appraised value for an adult who receives disability insurance benefits under federal old age survivors and disability insurance. Richard?
Mayor and Council, Richard Sumlin, Finance Director. As City Manager Kevin Hugman pointed out, there was discussion in the budget process last year, and there was input from citizens that they wished to see an improvement in the exemption amount. And it was again discussed in the council retreat that you all had in the fall. And so we're here tonight to take a final look at this. When we surveyed the other cities surrounding us, we found that for the most part, the other surrounding cities were at 30,000 for both the age 65 and older and the disabled exemption. And so Lancaster, DeSoto, and Cedar Hill were at the 30,000 for 65, and the others, except for DeSoto, for the disabled, were at 30, and DeSoto had the disabled at 25,000. And so we're proposing to move the city of Duncanville from 26,400 to 30,000. That equates to about $27.30 for each affected household. And there can only be one exemption that's granted. You can't have the exemption for both granted. And so we made a calculation to estimate what that would be as far as the impact to the city budget, and that would reduce our tax revenue by approximately $98,403 on an annual basis. And so with that, if there's any questions, I'll entertain them.
Seeing none, thank you. No comments, or do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just like to comment that with the sewer rates going up and the water rates going up and maybe some street pavement improvement fees, maybe, this is one little thing that we can give back to those who are on fixed income. And it's every chance that the city gets, I think that we're trying to do it. Now it's a shifting, and some people will call it a pittance, but every little bit helps, and some here, some there, and we're just keeping our eye open on those helps. And so if you have any ideas, let us know. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? All right, there is a motion and a second on the floor. So there is? I thought we had.
Move to approve.
Okay, I thought we had.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Seeing no further conversation, will you please vote? Okay. Item number 5B, we're going to pull tonight. These are some changes that we wanted to make in the Code of Ethics. And what we want to do is get all the council members here. And unfortunately, Councilwoman Jameson has the flu, so she's not here tonight. So we will pull that and put it on another agenda in the future. Item number 5C is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, ordering a joint election to be held in the City of Duncanville on Saturday, May 5th, 2018, for the purpose of electing a mayor for a 2-year term, one council member from District 2 for a 2-year term, and one council member from District 4 for a 2-year term.
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, will you please vote? Okay. Item number 5D is to consider a resolution establishing a Citizens Board Advisory Committee and defining the scope of work for said committee.
Mayor and Council, as we discussed with you at the workshop and at your council retreat in October, and then again most recently at the workshop last week, this item is brought forward for you to establish a bond advisory committee. The purpose of the Citizen Bond Advisory Committee would be to advise the City Council on the needs and potential projects for a potential bond election in November. Some of the questions that we had proposed and that you had agreed with as far as what the committee should look at in coming back to the council is whether a portion of the bond capacity should be dedicated to infrastructure and facilities, Looking at the future bonding capacity, recommending to the city council on whether the bond package should maintain that tax rate, reduce it, or increase the overall tax rate to fund the recommendations or the recommended projects. And then also for the bond committee to look at the comprehensive plan and the Parks Master Plan and the recommendations of those plans and what projects might be eligible or desired in a bond election. And then what other potential projects are out there through citizen input or other needs that might be identified. The committee structure, this resolution only establishes the committee, as we discussed with you before. The appointments, the actual appointments to the committee could be done at the next council meeting. But this resolution would establish the committee, give them the charge as we discussed. The members would be appointed by city council. It does provide for 15 to 19 members on the board, on the Citizen Advisory Commission, but it also is subject to change by the council. So if council wishes to change that number, to reduce it or increase it, that wording is in the resolution already that you can do that. The membership of that commission would be made up of members from the general public, as well as representatives from the boards as you see listed there in the Chamber of Commerce. We anticipate that if the Citizen Bond Advisory Commission is established in this month, in February, that they could begin work in March with a target of being able to make their recommendations to the City Council by the end of May, so that then the Council has time to digest those and to review them and ultimately decide on what you want to move forward with and meet our target deadlines by state law to be able to call an election in November. The resolution also provides for an automatic disestablishment of the committee, either at the earliest of the formal adoption of the recommendations by the City Council or August 1st, whichever comes first. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councilwoman Thomas.
I move to adopt the resolution with the following amendment. The committee chair shall be a council member who is elected by the city council.
And that is in addition to the verbiage that we had earlier on the agenda. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will you please vote? Okay, thank you. Item number E is to take any necessary action as a result of the executive session. There was no action taken in the executive session, so we will consider that a moot question. Item number 6 is to 6A is to receive the Park and Recreation quarterly report.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Bart Stevenson, the Director of Parks and Recreation. I'm pleased to stand before you tonight and talk about some of the achievements we've done in the last 3 months in Parks and Recreation, as well as facilities maintenance. In the last 3 months, we've had no changes in personnel for our full-time staff. However, at my next report, we will have a new irrigation tech that starts in 2 weeks, as well as we've made an offer to a recreation coordinator for the recreation center. So we'll have 2 new positions at a minimum for my next report. Some of the facilities improvements we've made in the last 3 months. This is the new parking lot lighting at Central Fire Station to provide security for our firemen as well as any citizens who might visit the fire station in the evenings. We also have a new gym divider curtain for the recreation center. And last, this was just completed today. I'm pleased to show some pictures of the new flooring for the senior center. It looks fantastic. The pictures really don't do it justice. It makes the room look much bigger. It really is going to be a nice enhancement to the facility. So we're excited that the seniors will be there in the morning to take their first look at their new flooring tomorrow.
Bart, is that looks like it's wood grain, but is that not a tile?
It's a vinyl plank, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what we put in at the recreation center and library for the lobby areas. A little thicker material, a little different, a little more hardy, but it does look like wood plank. If you were just to look at it from afar, it is exactly what it looks like. It has a weathered look to it. Some of the other work plan projects we have in progress. We have 4 projects that will be done in the next 45 days. We have irrigation controller replacements. We have bleacher shades that are currently in production for Harrington Park. And I want to highlight that one in particular because that is actually a joint project with our Boys Baseball Association. They contributed $30,000 to this project. So certainly appreciate the partnership we have with that group. We have new light poles coming in at Lakeside Park. And then also our members of the Recreation Center are very excited to have new cardio equipment coming very soon. That's actually will be on your February 20th agenda to approve the lease for the cardio equipment. Some other non-work plan item successes we've had in the last 3 months. We installed a new flagpole at the police station. That was, again, a joint project with our facilities department as well as Public Works. That's in advance of the new fencing that will be done. We've expanded the office space in Public Works to add for their new employee. And then all of our athletic crews rebuilt all of the mounds out at Harrington Park. And I know that seems like a trivial thing, but it's actually a lot of work to rebuild those mounds and get them right. It's according to specifications. So they did a great job. We had a tremendous, successful Christmas parade. I know in my time here is by far the largest Christmas parade I've been a part of. It was tremendous support by the community, so we're really proud of our staff for pulling all that together. And then you probably saw the display out in the lobby here at City Hall. I highlight this just because this is a great example of another partnership we're doing with the DISD, working with Ms. Gurnell and the construction department. They helped us with that project. In addition to that, they're also helping with our Daddy-Daughter Dance coming up this weekend. They're doing all the decorations for the gym for the Willy Wonka Daddy-Daughter Dance. So we also have our trout stocking ongoing. Again, it's really popular. I get a lot of phone calls from folks wanting to know when the trout's being stocked at Lakeside Park. We do it every 2 weeks. Again, our Daddy-Daughter Dance is this coming Saturday, and then our spring break camp is March 12th through the 16th. And I know I mentioned this a little bit last time, but at my last report, y'all hadn't officially adopted it. So I want to take one more opportunity to, again, thank our citizens, thank our council, thank our park board, and all of our staff who worked so hard to complete our park master plan. It was really a year-long project. It was a lot of work. I think you guys got your hard copies tonight, I believe. So that culminates that project completely, and we're so excited to get moving on now with the plans that are put forth in that document, starting with the upcoming bond election discussion. So very excited about that. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have. All right, thank you.
Seeing none. Six B is to receive the monthly financial report as of December 31, 2017.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Richard Summerlin, Finance Director again. And we want to look at our December 31st financial report. We should be, based on the number of months that have passed, at 25% of our budget. That would be our benchmark. Our general fund ending unreserved fund balance was at $10.8 million. That was 131 days of operations based on the adopted budget, or 56 days above the 75-day reserve. That represents about $4.6 million. That was a very big swing from the prior month. You may remember that when I presented in November, we actually had a slight 6-day deficit on that fund balance target. And that's due to the property tax coming in, which is primarily received during the month of December and January. And so we also received our first sales tax for the year. The October sales is recorded in December because the state is 2 months in arrears. So if we look at our general fund revenues, the purple line is our 2018 budget on a straight line, and the blue line is our previous 3-year average, and then the red line charts out our actuals through December. And so you can see that we're moving above that 3-year average, but right along that same curve. Then we look at the general fund revenue of property taxes. Again, You'll note that the red line is slightly above the 3-year average and following along perfectly well with that. So you see that spike in December and January, and then it levels off for the remainder of the year. And we look at our general fund expenditures, and again, the red line is coming right along. We tend to spend a lot of money in the first months of the year, and then that's primarily with letting contracts and procurement for vehicles, et cetera, and then we tend to fall below the purple line for the remainder of the year. We look at our utility fund summary, and the utility fund ending unreserved fund balance is at $7.3 million. That's 144 days of operations, and that's in excess of the 60-day reserve of $4.3 million. Our utility solid waste revenues are, they have a 1-month delay because of the billing process, so there's only 2 months of revenue that's reflected at the present time. And our water wastewater revenues are about 12% higher than they were at the same time last year. So you look at our revenues, same concept as the other general fund charts. So you see the red line is our actuals through December, and starting to pull away a little bit from that 3-year line. And again, that represents a 12% increase over just the prior year. And then we look at our utility fund expenditures, and again, they're tracking right along that 3-year average and slightly below the projected budget. Then we look at our innovation fund projects. The park master plan, as Bart alluded to, is essentially finished now, and the other projects that are on that list are either in process or yet to be started. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Councilman Rutherford.
Richard, the medical self-insurance fund, you said we're 59% higher than where we were last year. Is that something we budgeted, or?
Well, yeah, we budgeted for there to be a little bit higher, but our experience so far has been a little more than even what we projected. And I spoke with Jennifer Ote, our HR manager, this afternoon, and one of the things that we've yet to receive is there's an aggregate cap that we get for stop loss cap, and we have not received that money. It relates to fiscal year 17, and they're still auditing that. And our advisors have indicated that we should be receiving about $316,000 from that stop loss sometime during the month of February, and then that's should be about half of the total that we received. So we should be getting another $300,000 to $400,000 depending on the audit. So hopefully somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 or $700,000 additional revenue, which will help erase that deficit for at least for now.
And that additional revenue wasn't budgeted then?
It was not, no.
Okay, seeing no further lights, thank you very much. This has completed all of our agenda items, so it's now 8:08, and we will stand adjourned. Thank you.